Hello and welcome everyone to GPS10's online professional development programming. These are difficult times, COVID-19 pandemic going on. I have to tell you, in the past 2 weeks, I've received almost close to 500 emails. And these are not junk emails, these are the ones which are really important, and I have to address all these emails. And I do not know how much of training we are being given every day, how to communicate via email. I had to learn on my own, but I think it's something you should learn and know beforehand, especially in these pandemic times. You have to learn how to respond to emails, write emails, and be careful when you write what you write in your emails. So therefore, we decided to do this event where you're going to learn art of email. Today, our speaker is Keiland Cooper. He is a PhD student in Interdepartmental Neuroscience program. Today he's going to be discussing about some of the data available out there, how crazy it is, the number of emails people get, and what's probably the best way to sort of navigate this online communication landscape. Welcome to our studio, Keiland.
Hey, thank you for the nice introduction. I appreciate it. So thank you for having me come out and try and share a little bit of what I know about emailing. Again, by no means I'm not an email expert, but I don't think there's really such thing as an email expert, although I'm sure somebody is out there selling their services to be an email expert, or you actually are a developer for Gmail or something. But what I'm going to talk about is email communication, or at least what I've kind of thought of about the subject, and kind of what I wish other people would maybe do. And at the end of the day, maybe you'll learn something that could be helpful from it too. So as Heringer mentioned, a good question is why. Email seems pretty straightforward, so why should you sit here and listen to a 30, 40-minute video on something that should seem kind of intuitive? But I would argue, and hopefully I'll make this point even more explicit as I go on, is that it's a skill like any other thing, right? Like, you wouldn't necessarily just say, oh, I know how to write a text message to my friend, therefore I could write, I don't know, a Pulitzer Prize winning novel or sonnet or song. It's a skill like every other thing, and that's why we have people trying to talk about it. And also, I just kind of want to give a bit of appreciation for email, maybe throughout this whole presentation. As we'll see, it consumes a large part of your life, and really it's things like that that kind of got me interested in email, alongside of useful information of kind of its impact on how you can promote your career and promote yourself. And I think to sum pretty much the why up in general, of why you really should care about this, among all the other things, is this nice quote from Catherine Hansen, which simply says, email is so heavily and globally used to communicate in the workplace that unclear, garbled, poorly written emails waste time, money, and productivity. And it's really that last one that got me interested in emailing, and not really emailing in general, but just kind of all aspects of my life. Because at the end of the day, nobody wants to just sit in front of their computer answering emails. The goal of an email is to get the information, do something with it, and then delete that email or archive that email or something else that you can do with it. And so if that's the goal, you want to, figure out a good way for you to be productive with emails, and there's all sorts of tips and tricks that can go along with that. But also, by definition, you have to pay it forward. And this is kind of what got me interested in trying to give a talk like this, because no matter how much productivity that I could do and how well my emails are written, if the person sending you the email doesn't do these things, then you will be rate limited by how slow or fast that they go. So we're pretty much all scientists here, or at least we're all at a university in a graduate program, and so we like stats and graphs and numbers, and I'm no different, and so I kind of live by these. And I just kind of want to give a sense of an overview of the global email landscape that you will almost certainly use, I mean, at least for the foreseeable future, for probably your working career. In 2017, a study was done that showed point blank, point simply, email is the primary form of communication across the majority of professionals. At the end of the day, there was over 1 billion email mailboxes floating around the world. And each day, 1 billion emails are sent back and forth across the servers. And so if you really just kind of sit and think about that for a second in terms of productivity and why this is so important, if there's 1 billion emails being sent per day, and say you could save even 1 second on an email, that's 1 billion seconds that you could save the global workforce, which turns out to be a huge amount of productivity. And I think you could probably save even more seconds than that. And I'm sure somebody is probably sitting down doing that calculation right now. Another thing that you might want to keep in mind when you're doing this is that Fast Company study sent 1,000 cold emails to high-level executives and companies, and they found that only 45% were opened. So already you get an email, it just gets thrown away. And then out of the 700 people that opened the email, and then there was a few that bounced and other things, senders, only 12 out of the 700 people actually replied to their cold email. So you want your email to be good, right? Like if cold emailing, you hear these stories all the time to get jobs, and I can tell stories of myself that like the first research position I ever got in my entire life, and again, I'm sitting here as a PhD student, so that's pretty important kind of trajectory that I took, was a cold email. I never met the professor before in my entire life. I just said, hey, I'm Keiland. I'm really interested in that case, it was the brain. I would love to do XYZ. Can we meet? They said yes. We met. I did research, loved it, and now I'm here. And there's 100 stories for cold emailing. You hear stats all the time that the majority of the job market isn't posted online. And I think that holds pretty true in general. But also, if you think about those 100 billion emails sent per day, and you compare that to the McKinsey numbers, 28% of the workday by the average working professional, not just academics, was spent emailing. So sitting in front of the computer, sending information back and forth between people. That equates, according to the Adobe study, to about 3 hours of your day just sitting on email for the average working professional that they queried. That's a lot of your time that you could be doing all sorts of other things that you would probably prefer to do. And like I said, you can be productive as possible, but until other people who send you these possibly unproductive emails come by, then things won't get done. And particularly for my professors among us and all of us who don't want to go into the McKinsey's 28%. Academics aren't alone, although it seems like we spend a little bit less time on email, about 13%. So about half the time of, say, the average working professional, and about 10% of their time was spent on the weekends emailing also. And it was actually the academic that got me really first interested in this time sink that email is, because I saw it firsthand. I was sitting with one of my professors in my undergrad. We were just talking, and he had 2 monitors, and he was facing me, and I saw his screen, and he had a huge red number to the side of his inbox. I mean, it's visible, you can't miss it. And I had to comment on it. I was like, you have that many emails? And he's like, you don't know the half of it. You should see my other inboxes. And because I found out that he actually had 2 emails accounts for 2 different universities he was affiliated with. And so that number was doubled. So again, depends on the professor, depends on what stage of their career. But if most of your time is just spent typing to send messages to other people, you probably want to do it right. And this is actually not just something that is kind of random. I mean, there's enough for people to actually talk about it impacting research. And again, if you think about it, if you're spending 13% of your time on email, what else could you be spending your time doing? You could be mentoring students. You could be working at home. You could be working in the lab. You could be doing all sorts of other things and just sitting in your inbox. And so actually after that meeting I had with the professor where I saw that huge amount of email, I started thinking about it more and more to myself, and I actually read another article about emailing from the guy who invented Wolfram Alpha. And I kind of got into this whole idea of quantifying things, and I was backing up my data from undergrad to make the move to graduate school, and I thought, well, I have this data, I might as well do something with it. And so I plotted all the emails that I had gotten just to kind of get a sense of what's my email landscape look like. And you can see that here, the red is from my undergrad, the green is from my graduate school. It's just kind of telling and kind of revealing that someone, first year graduate student who really, frankly, was just setting up his inbox, which is kind of funny. You can see that in green. You can kind of see the increase in the amount of graduate emails over time as you join organizations, or as the year kicks in, or as you go from having like nice, pristine, like 1 email per week to like 20, 30 emails per day. And it's kind of cool as it kind of tells you your work habits. If you look kind of like in this region, this right around the 1st of January, this is winter break and nobody's really talking that much except for all these different scattered emails that people still send. You can see this big gap right here that correlates to my sleeping schedule. So I will kind of send emails all throughout the day, and unfortunately, as you can see, in like the middle of the night sometimes, to probably some detriment. And you can also see, which I thought was really cool, I moved from the Eastern time zone to Western time zone, and you can kind of see this shift from one time zone to the other. Sorry, my alarm. All right. And so you can actually just take that same plot and you can collapse it across time, you can collapse it across days, and you can get these nice little curves. You can plot the number of emails per hour like I did, and you can kind of see like, okay, well during the day, what's the probability that I'm sending an email? And it turns out that I'm most likely to be sending an email right around lunchtime. And it kind of drops off as it goes to the night. And again, you can kind of see that even at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, unfortunately, I'm still sending emails on some strange nights. And I actually think this is kind of cool because I'm guessing that everyone has their own individual curve. I know some professors of mine will be like a U shape where they will only send emails at 2 times during the day. Other people will probably like be a flat bar where they're just completely sending email all the time. And some people might be completely random. You can also, what I did was just look at kind of like the frequency of emails over time, just like how many emails do I get a day? I know Harinder said that he gets like 500 emails for the last, what was the time period you said? Oh, your mic turned off. Do the opposite.
Oh yeah, I think it was like last 2 weeks, like maybe a little less than that. I feel like everyone is sitting in front of their computers now, and everyone is trying to get their work done on computers, and every email is important. So this is crazy. Yes.
Yeah. And you can still see kind of the same trends. So this is kind of like the upward trend of when I just started. So this is days from when I first opened my inbox at UCI till today. And you can kind of see this nice steady upward trend and kind of the amount of emails I've gotten as I've gotten more involved in different organizations and talking to more people and with other labs and research. And so, yeah, you can do all sorts of things. And really, I did it just to kind of get a feel for like, where's my time going, right? So say I'm sitting doing email for these hours of the day, most likely, then that's a fair amount of time, even for the little amount of emails that I get per day. It also let me kind of prove whether or not the advertisement for this webinar was real or not. Again, I'm a nerd, we're a scientist. We made the claim that you guys are going to get more emails because of COVID-19. I had this, it took like 5 minutes to actually compute that, set an arbitrary threshold for, and this is actually kind of conservative. Let's just say January, February. The 1st of February versus here, and you can plot the average number of daily emails, and I took a t-test of that, which actually ends up not being the best statistical you should do. You should actually fit a model, but it doesn't matter. But it was indeed significant, and I would guarantee that the model probably would be too. So all in all, COVID has gotten us sending more emails. And I can't help but to feel like most of those are the campus announcement emails and all sorts of other announcements that we're getting because of them. So we email a lot. And so I think we all know in the back of our heads, you can kind of just materialize an example of bad emails of not to do. But again, you want to think to yourself when you're writing your email to not do those things. And so the best way to learn is to just take this experience, and whenever you like find yourself writing an email and you're like, or stop. When you find yourself reading an email and you don't like something, take a mental note of that. And don't just like complain that you don't like that thing, but also say, I don't like this thing and I will commit to never doing this thing. So I will never be like that person who did the thing that I don't like. And that looks kind of like the red number that one of my professors had. Oh, this figure looks really bad. Probably because of the resolution. Anyway, just in general, I can summarize it pretty quickly. In 2013, among working professionals, about 64 or 74% kind of shared that same sentiment, that like they didn't like the email, it caused anger or confusion, which is kind of menial to think about, that like that many people have like gotten a string of text in their inbox and felt bad after it. But there's all sorts of reasons why, things from grammar that you can see here, too many replies all for the email receivers, and et cetera, that people don't really like. And the list kind of goes on and on. And so you just want to avoid it. And like I said, the best way to write better emails is just to look at ones that are bad and don't do those things. This is just a meme from PhD Comics, but I was a TA in school, and this really isn't far off of a joke to be telling people. You don't just want to have an empty subject, empty salutation to somebody. An email isn't a text. I'll say this later on. Just misproper grammar, misproper spelling, no call to action. You get the This is another email that some sort of TA would get. You get a hey, no greeting to the person, simple I without capitalization, text messages all thrown in. This one, you get he kind of goes through it and tells you all about his own opinions. And this is, I mean, again, this is what you should probably do. And I think this is kind of what we do in the back of our heads, but again, you don't want to be a hypocrite about doing these things that you say you don't like to do. Hey, professor, it's me, blah, from your freshman engineering on Monday and Wednesday. I apologize, I'm emailing you pretty late. I'm not understanding the homework at all. It's just broad statements that they're sending at 11 p.m. at night to Jared Reckenwald. This one's actually really funny. Let's just skip to, I stayed up all night and put a shit ton of work and had to save it on a flash drive. Just went to go take a quick, you get the point. Don't do these things, right? You just don't want to. And lastly, I think what might probably drive the point home the most, you can just look at this and feel disdain towards whoever the sender was. For me, it's the Comic Sans. For others, it might be the disjointed color. Although I guess I can kind of see what this person did. You're separating your points by color, which could be good, but I mean, separating them by the paragraph lines could probably be enough. So these are extreme examples. And so I think most emails are not that bad, but it does kind of set the point in motion to be more mindful about how you write. And to really just summarize everything up, as I said earlier, the reason for miscommunication and communication to next is egocentrism. And effectively, it's just this idea that when we're writing an email, we're not thinking about the person who's reading it. We're thinking about what we're going to write and why we're going to write it. But whenever you do anything, and once you write like scientific papers and grants and these sorts of things, what you get drilled into your head is that you're not writing the grant for you. The whole point of effective communication is to write some piece of information such that the other person can understand it the best. And And if you take this point home and just take that one simple point to heart, I guarantee you your email writing will be better for you, which will make things a little bit easier, or maybe just slightly more work at the beginning just to take that extra 2 seconds, but it will make the other person's life a lot better, which means that their replies will be better, they won't be as agitated, they'll get back to you faster, there'll be less miscommunication between people, which will pay dividends in the long run. And to put this into kind of my own words, convey whatever thought it is you are trying to make clearly, concisely, and minimize the cognitive burden for your recipient as much as you possibly can. From the beginning to the end, you basically want to be putting thoughts in the other person who's reading that email's mind, such that when they're done reading it, they know exactly what you were thinking. It's impossible. There's enough communication studies, and they say 70% of communication is nonverbal, and you don't get influence, you don't get tone, and all these sorts of things. And actually, because of that, it makes the challenge all that much harder and all that much easier to be misunderstood when you're writing it. So just take this to heart, the egocentrism, think about the other person, and think about trying to make whatever is in their inbox just that much more efficient. And at the end of the day, it'll make everything else more efficient when you're writing your email. Because that, at the end of the day, when you're doing these things, and when you're thinking about the other person to make whatever task there is doing more efficient for them, it makes your email writing, or frankly, grant writing or paper writing, perceived as being better. Nobody wants to open up an email and see 5 full-length paragraphs that look like novel. They want to see short paragraphs that they can quickly look at and get out of their inbox as fast as possible. If they don't see those things, or they don't understand what you're saying, or they don't really get what point you're trying to make, then they're thinking to themselves, oh, now I have to ask follow-up questions, which in some cases is inevitable, and you should. I'm not saying don't ask questions. But you want to make their life as easy as possible so that they won't say, hey, that person's communication was pretty bad. So let's not be pessimistic. There is a lot of good that can be done in an email also. As I mentioned, in driving everything home, the email is for the recipient. The email is not for you, unless you're sending the email to yourself, in which case, okay, you beat me. Like I said earlier, from the top and the bottom, you want to arouse attention as soon as the email is noticed, right? This is the subject line, which I'll talk about a bit later. But again, remember, you're conveying a thought, you're conveying information. And so you want that thought to be the abstract of your email. So as soon as they see it, they have some schema of what the rest of the body, once they open it, will be about. And I should clarify here that these are kind of tips for the sender, and these are going to be tips for the receiver when they reply. So you want to be respectful, you want to be kind. These are just kind of general things that you would think that everybody would know, but you would be absolutely shocked by the types of emails. I mean, I was shocked by some emails that I get every now and then of commands. I mean, this is just a communication skill in general. You want to be nice and polite to people. You want to be clear and concise. This goes back to recipient focused. You want your information to be as easily accessible with minimal interference, however that can be. And that ranges from spelling, that ranges from formatting, that ranges from putting images in certain places and saying certain things, proper language, structuring things better. Eventually it'll become a habit and it'll actually in the end help you think better, but it might take some time if you don't feel that you do that now. And you want to have a clear point at the end of a call to action. An email is, again, you're conveying information, and whether that information is an action, so I want you to do this thing, or can you help me with this thing, or even I just want to inform you. You want them to know, like, okay, I read this body of text, so now what do I do with it? You don't want it to be ambiguous, like, why did they send me the email? Do I reply? What do I want to do? If want them to do something, at the end of the day, just tell them, and that will make everyone's life a little bit easier. And so then you send an email to the person, or you get an email and you need to write a reply back. Just be timely. This will range. Everyone has their own ideas of what this will look like, and frankly, everyone has their own ideas in general about what email will be, hence the art. You want to mindfully read emails to not misinterpret tone. This is kind of big, just with text in general. I didn't cite it here, but there's been studies done with text message on these sorts of things about how, because you don't have the enunciation in your words, the body language or the visual contact and all of these other social cues that we use to kind of understand the kind of intention and ethos of language, it's easy to misinterpret an email. And so you want to take a couple seconds and think to yourself, wait, might I be misunderstood? And this is kind of really important, right? You don't want to send an email to someone and offend them. You don't want to give someone a compliment and they interpret it as an insult, which is completely counterintuitive to your goal. You want to avoid reply alls that aren't relevant to all parties. I think we've all been in big email threads like that before. You're basically cluttering up the person's inbox. And just like on the other side, use clear and concise writing. So, I mean, we can just take a quick step-by-step through, at the end of the day, how I write emails, which by no means is the gold standard, and I'm sure I have a lot of room to improve. Actually, when I was looking at that chart from undergrad, I kind of pulled random emails just to kind of randomly sample how I emailed, and I was atrocious. Like it's actually bad. And when you look back, and I actually kind of encourage this if you're ever in like an old inbox, kind of go to your sent mail and just see how you type and see if it's kind of evolved over time. I know, for instance, that like I would never really say the person's name. I would just say, hey. Or I wouldn't offer a salutation at all. And all sorts of things that would be unstructured. I'd send them, I guess I still send them at all times of the night at some points. But you want it to be kind of nice. And so like I said earlier, it starts at the beginning. So I will send this email to Herringer, and I will want him to, when he has his list of emails in his inbox, I want him to see my name to the left of it, and then to the right of it. He says, quick question on an email presentation, and he knows exactly what it's about. He knows he's going to have to answer a question, so he's probably going to read it a little bit more careful, and he knows what it's going to be regarding. So as soon as he gets into this email, he already has an idea of, okay, I'm thinking about the email presentation. I'm thinking about the scheduling for it. I'm thinking about what we need. Do I have the Zoom links? Well, all these things will be fresh in his mind. So really, by the time he even hits my text, in his head, you have all these ideas already primed and ready to go for the reader. There's all sorts of other things that you could talk about in terms of cold emailing and trying to get a job. And if you're interested in these things, you can look it up. There's all sorts of studies been done on this. And actually the Fast Company study, even though it kind of failed miserably, that was their original goal, was to cold email the VPs, and they varied the different parts of the email to see which one got the best response. They, in their case, found none, but there's actually been academic studies on these sorts of things that have shown different results. I won't talk about that here. With your recipients, one thing that everyone wants to know, what's the CC on the right? It's called carbon copy, and it's just the idea to just keep somebody in the loop where a reply isn't necessarily expected, but everyone else sees them. There's also a BCC, that's a blind carbon copy. That means that like they're not really expected to reply. That's kind of the point of the carbon copy. It's just for like an administrative history throughout time in your inbox if you ever need to search the information. But blind carbon copy doesn't go to everyone or they can't see that they're on it, so it looks like you just got it from one person, or it was just sent to one person, whereas carbon copy, it could see hundreds of people who might be on that email list. The subject line, like I said, short, sweet. The reader opens it, they know exactly what they're getting. And the greeting. So there's this database called the Enron database. And actually before this, people wrote emails kind of like the old letter style. It was really overtly polite. You had these like kind of nice introductions, like dear, like you would write in an old letter. And when they analyzed these, the Enron, this was a big corporation before it kind of got in trouble. They found out that most people just said hey or hi or nothing at all in some cases, which prior to, and I talked about this in the article, that people really didn't know much about emailing, right? Because it's this personal communication that you're not really going to share with the academic community. The Enron ended up getting all their emails confiscated by the government. Government sent them out on the public domain because it was United States reference. And then the academics went crazy because this was a huge corpus of thousands and thousands of emails. And it gave like this first glimpse of how is corporate America and the professional world actually talking to each other. It's actually used for all sorts of things now. You can get it online if you just type in Enron email database. Artificial intelligence people, which is actually how I heard about it, use it for natural language processing, so like training neural networks to learn how to talk. But it can be used for all sorts of things, from sociology to productivity studies. And then to the most important part, at the end of the day, the body. So if your subject line was good enough, they should already be entering this body with some idea going on. Open being nice, open with the thesis. I was just making sure Herringer is fine. I hadn't talked to him in a while, and I just want to make sure that he's fine. It just goes with being kind and polite, and I really wanted to make sure he's fine.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking, buddy.
Yes. If he wasn't fine, then I would kind of have an idea of why he's not answering my quick question. If it's a cold email or if I don't really know the person well, I'll introduce myself first. Just the short sentence, not very much. Just, hi, I'm Keiland, graduate student, or I'm Keiland XYZ, for whatever the situation calls, just so they have an idea of who they're talking to. Because again, they never met you before. But you want to keep it short and sweet, just like the entire email. You want it to be not a message, not a text that you would send your friend, but it's also not like the letter, like I said earlier. It's kind of a memo in between. It's what exactly it is. Think about the types of emails you would like to read yourself, and that they probably fall in some spectrum between these. And I really didn't mention it earlier, but in general with emailing, and particularly here, you might want to control your tone to the person you're talking to, right? Everyone's gotten the TA letters from a student that, well, actually, when I was a TA, I got two types of like the boundary condition emails from people. I got the one where students would call me doctor, and I was an undergrad teaching a class. And then there were students who would like call me a nickname that I had never met before. So it definitely varies. If you're in doubt about whether you know the person, just err on the side of formality. It never hurts. Particularly people you don't know. Some people want to have their last name. Some people are fine with their first name. It goes on and on. So just be mindful. And if you're worried, just be kind of formal about it. So, hey, doctor. One big thing that I think people are finally catching on to, but I remember in undergrad, no one seemed to, is you want to separate points. So like if you zoomed out and you squinted, you would see this email and you would be like, okay, well, I see 3 big chunks. And so at the end of this email, I should expect to have 3 big chunks of information. Your email is a paper, it's a paragraph. You write scientific papers in a certain way because it's an efficient way to convey information, right? So break it into paragraphs. You want to open with your thesis. You want to tell people like, this is what you're getting with this email. If you have multiple points, then you can break them up into point A's and point B's, not explicitly, but implicitly within the body. But you can use little tricks like this to kind of make that apparent when you go through. Stay nice, but stay to the point. Don't oversell it. I don't want to be like, Herringer, I hope you're okay. I hope your family hasn't been bothering you too much. I hope that the lines in Trader Joe's haven't been too obtrusive and the toilet paper has been plentiful. You want to keep it a little bit on the minimal as much as you possibly can. And just a random note, if you're going to put something in here, reference an attachment. and give somebody a clear call of what you want them to do once they see that body of text in their inbox. And lastly, the sign off. And this ranges from all sorts of people. So there was one person who was like very, very terse and very, I want no anything, you just say your name, no signature, no nothing. And then there's people who are like, who cares, it adds information. I've met people who say that like put photos of themselves in here, where they say, oh, it helps them put a face to the body to make it more personal, whereas the other person would be like, no, don't do that at all. So there's variance between, but like always, you want to find something kind of nice in the middle between those two extremes. But before you get to that, people, when I was doing a bit of reading for this, the biggest contention that I seemed to find was how to end the email. There's so many camps of people who say that like regards is rude and it's kind of cheeky and don't do it. That cheers is like you're inviting someone to the bar, so don't say it. But I've talked to like big name people, I've cold emailed a few people, and I've gotten the gamut of responses from super formal to some guy who said ya dig and then his name. So it varies, but if you're in doubt, just say best wishes, just say best, all the best, or something kind of along those lines also. As I mentioned, keep your signature classy, add only useful info that someone knows, don't add all sorts of advertisements and stuff. People really don't need all that in their email. And please take out the sent from my iPhone. It was a practical joke that Apple played on everyone that we've still yet to get over. And to keep the paper analogy going, proofread your email before you send it. I'm probably a hypocrite by saying this because I don't always do it myself. But you want to kind of give it that feeling of that you actually cared about what you're writing, or you don't want to say something bad, or you send it to the wrong person, whatever. On that note, I'll skip to this. There's a feature in Gmail that you can configure in settings if you want to just look it up. I live by this. It gives you a 3-second pause. So like you hit send and then the email won't be sent. It'll display a little counter right here. It'll say like 3, 2, 1, and it'll still display it. And it's so funny how many times like after you hit send, and I think it's because you're just waiting to see that sent, that you just decide, oh, I'm going to proofread now because I have nothing better to do until I wait for it to be sent. And then you realize all the spellings you mistake because you were lazy like me and you didn't proofread your email. So the 3-second pause is kind of nice. It was a pretty clever method. They give you once during those 3 seconds, there's an undo button, so you can hit send and you have 3 seconds to click undo and then it won't send. I live by this. Another thing that I put right here, you'll notice I kind of took out the salutation. Replies in general can be less formal. If you're in kind of like an instant message back and forth with someone, there's no reason to just keep like saying, hey, hey, hey. You can actually see, I was looking at some of my email threads because you can see them as kind of like stripes or linked emails, that the embellishment will kind of go down to minimal. And it's kind of funny, you can see like over the course of the thread that the actual like embellishment goes from like a more formal letter to some sort of text. And as I mentioned earlier, that tone is really not conveyed. There's actually a study done on this, something like 60%. Actually, it was a little bit above chance rate in actually detecting your tone. So you wanna be careful about how you do this. If you're like me and you are kind of a late owl and you want to write the email but you don't want to send them 11 o'clock email at night, there's a feature in Gmail called schedule send. I think it's right in here now. You just click it and it gives you an option, and you can actually set the time that your email will send. I use this all the time. If I'm up at like 11, 12 o'clock at night and I have something on my mind, but I don't want to send it that late because it's kind of rude sometimes. Some people might perceive it as being kind of rude. Again, if you know them and you know it's fine, then it may differ. But you can schedule this in to be at like 6 in the morning, 7, 8, 9 in the morning, or whenever you need it. You can actually be even clever and email yourself reminders or all sorts of things. Or if you want to email someone a reminder, this is also kind of useful. I've done that before. If someone's like, hey, remind me of this, I'll just go in while it's fresh on my mind, do that reminder, and then send it, which again is kind of useful. Lastly, and this is something I just started doing, which kind of goes into the productivity phase. Gmail has this nice templating feature. They rolled out their neural network autocomplete, which I guess most of us see, and it's actually not that bad. That's because Gmail is reading your Gmails, so they should know what you're writing better. But also there's this template, which is even nicer, and I don't think a lot of people know about it. I really didn't until like, I don't know, 6 months ago or so. But you can, like, if you can, once you email for like 6 months and you kind of know the different categories that you'll email, and you catch yourself writing the same thing over and over again, there's a template function that you can just go through in Gmail, and you can throw in a template, and then you can go and edit that template kind of quickly with the new information and save yourself from rewriting everything over and over again. So you can Google like Gmail templates or something, and then we'll see. And that really sums it up. Like I said, there's a lot actually to email that I really didn't expect there to be. There's all sorts of things online because it's so prevalent, right? 1 billion emails in all sorts of different contexts. So how to be more productive, how to have inbox zero, how to send marketing emails, how to send newsletters to people. All of these sort of things kind of surround this one digital platform, and it's kind of nice that it all is. And again, I'll end with kind of the theme of this, and why, because email is this literary written communication, that it's not necessarily an exact science. While, like I said, you can apply these kind of structures and these kind of principles to your writing, you do want to make it your own, and everyone does. I mean, that's why people have different signatures and different email styles and use formatting and all these sorts of things. Because art really has no rules, and that's how things change. Just like with Enron, right? If everyone just kept with the Dear email like they did back in the day, no one would ever realize that you can just say hi or how are you or these sorts of things. So be kind, be conscientious, but don't take everything to heart. But I will say the one thing you do want to take to heart, which I will contradict this, is just make the person you're sending the email to's life easier somehow. Because I guarantee you it will in the end make your life easier too. And so that is it. There's all sorts of things more that we can talk about at some point. If you're interested in these slides or the code, you can send me an email and I can demonstrate firsthand these skills in action. You can see if I actually conveyed the information to you also. So. Thank you for watching, and
thank you.
talk more.
Well, thank you, Keiland. This was very helpful.